Okay. I'm real pleased to welcome Sukrit Mishra from Solar United Neighbors son. He's the program director there, and we're real pleased not only just to talk about solar panels, which we've wanted to in the past, but they're an advocacy organization, so they're not really representing a single company, but just solar panels in general. And I'm going to turn it over to you because you know more about your career and everything than I do, and we're real glad to have you. Thank you for presenting today.
Perfect. Before I get started, can you hear me okay? Just a thumbs up will do. Perfect. Okay, with that, before I start an introduction on myself, let me just share my screen real quick. And there we go. Okay, before I jump into this, good evening, everyone, and thanks again for the invitation for this month. And like Christine said, my name is Sukrit Mishra. I am the DC Program Director at Solar United Neighbors. This is a 501c3 nonprofit based right off of DuPont Circle. We have been running for almost a decade and a half now. And during that time, we have expanded to 12 other states, as well as Puerto Rico last year. And I usually do these Solar 101s for local neighborhood commissioners, other faith-based organizations such as Interfaith Power and Light, or any other groups on a case-by-case basis. And my goal is simple. These presentations are filled with a lot of technical, financial, and community-based information. You do not have to understand everything from the fly. I just want you to walk away feeling a bit more informed, a bit more excited about solar. And I will leave my contact information at the end if you want to follow up about the co-op we're running this year, or if you have just any other questions about the projects or the work we're doing in the clean energy space. And with that, let's get started. And what I would ask is, I'm sure you'll have questions during the presentation. Just leave them for the end, and I'll take every one of them during the Q&A towards the end. And with that, let's get started. And at the risk of repeating myself, that is me in the picture. And yeah, like I said, DC Program Director, I live in this town. And in a nutshell, my job is based around program management, which is the co-ops that we run in DC, Maryland, and Virginia. It's a lot of technical work. When I say technical, we have folks in single family homes as well as small businesses or commercial properties that reach out to us and ask for energy assessments on the roofs or any other solar consultations. That's something I specialize in. And then the last part of my work is a bit around policy and advocacy. Sometimes it's not so pleasant. It means engaging PEPCO or protecting the rights of existing solar owners in the district. Progress is not a straight line. So sometimes folks, they do the hard work, install solar, and they get some pushback from PEPCO. And that's where we step in, mediate that case, and hopefully bring it to a successful conclusion. And yeah, and just one last thing. I mean, I'm originally from India. I've been here for almost 10 years. And I've been in the clean energy space for almost 4 years. And yeah, with that, let's move on. And like I said, we are a 501c3 national nonprofit. What that basically means is, while we do provide a lot of expertise in the solar arena, we maintain a neutral stance. Anytime I have a consultation and folks ask me for specific recommendations around solar installers, solar SREC brokers, or anything else, we can provide facts. We do not take sides. We do not provide specific company recommendations on the record. If someone wants numbers, I'm happy to provide them, but we do not take sides in the commercial space. That's what I mean by neutral nonprofit. And our theory of change is triple faceted. Number one, we help people go solar, whether it's in our co-ops, whether it's on their own across the country, doesn't matter. Our job is done. People go solar, that's all that matters. Sometimes people have problems with existing systems, even though they have a warranty. We step in there, provide some expertise, connect them with the right partners or connections we have across the country. Number two, join together. What I mean by that is when we host webinars in person or virtual like this one, we like to gather some momentum, spread the message, and educate folks on the benefits of solar, what to expect and what to avoid, because they're not like any other industry. They're good actors and bad actors. So we try to educate folks on what to look out for and what to avoid. Number three, fighting for energy rights. Like I said, the benefits around net metering, the savings on the utility bills, they don't come as easily. There's always going to be pushback from other companies, utilities, or any other stakeholders. And that's where we try to, represent the rights of solar homeowners or HOAs. And yeah, those are the three goals we have while we run as an organization. A quick inception story. How Sun basically got started. I'm not sure if you see the full picture here. That's Anya Schoolman. That's our executive director and company founder. On the left, that's her son, Walter. And on the right, that's his friend, Diego. Back in 2007, they watched this documentary in school, which was called The Inconvenient Truth. Got really inspired, came back home. And for some context, Anya lives in Mount Pleasant up north. Got really inspired, and Walter basically said, Mom, we got to do something. Let's make a difference. Let's help our community on some renewable initiative. Anya got curious about solar, and during her research, she realized how complicated, bureaucratic, and pricey the whole solar installation process was. Mind you, this is back in 2007. And that's when she decided to form her very first bulk purchase campaign, or as we call, a co-op. She aggregated 50 homeowners in the local vicinity in this co-op. They researched the whole process from start to finish. And they were the first 50 people to go solar with our company. And we were able to achieve a discounted bulk rate using that model. We expanded it gradually across different wards in DC, and then to Northern Virginia, then to Maryland. And like I said, now we are across the nation. We have made it to 12 states. Puerto Rico was expanded to last year because they suffer year after year because of the hurricane season. We're trying to make a difference over there as well. And yeah, I mean, from Mount Pleasant across the nation, it's been quite a journey. And during that time, we have members all across 50 states, volunteers, Congress, folks at Congress, lawmakers, people across every niche. Around 400 co-ops have been run so far. 81 homes have gone solar during that period, and we continue to build on that momentum. What I'll cover today, there will be three parts. Number one, solar technology. That's going to be a bit more technically dense. The reason I cover it is because I want people to know just the basics, basic terms, what solar looks like, the process. You don't have to know everything or understand everything. Just bear with me while I drop all those engineering terms. Part two is where people get most excited or curious. It's solar economics, the savings, the benefits of the Inflation Reduction Act, yada, yada. And last part, I'll give a quick rundown of the co-op model or the program we're running this year and how one can go solar across DC. And with that, let's get started. Solar technology. So in a nutshell, solar photovoltaic cells, also known as solar PVs, this is the official term for the solar panels that you see on rooftops. Their basic function is to convert solar or the sunlight that they're receiving during the daylight hours into a usable form of electricity. All you need to know is they're called solar PV cells, solar panels. They're interchangeable. Doesn't matter which term you use. An example you see here, this was an installation here in DC. It's an example of a racking system. Something I tell people is the panels don't just go directly on a rooftop. They need some sort of a medium in between them just to protect the integrity or the structure of the roof, and also ensure that the panel does not receive any damage. And so what we call it is a racking system. Excuse me. And there are various forms of a racking system. This is an example on an asphalt shingle roof. It involves roof penetrations. If you're not so comfortable with getting penetrations in your roof, even though the warranty covers it, there are also ballasted mounted systems where installers apply an adhesive or some kind of a sticky glue, or they add a permanent weight to keep the panels down. And all these models or options are effective. It just depends on the condition of your roof, how much weight it can take, and the installer's recommendation. So it's, all roofs are different. Depending on your own customizations, the installer will recommend their own, proposal to you. And these are some examples of row homes that went solar in previous co-ops across the DMV. This is a member I called from 2017. This is from 2021. These homeowners were in DC. This third picture was in Northern Virginia. The reason I used a variety here is because, especially in the capital region, roofs are a bit more compact, a bit more economical compared to the co-ops that we run in, say, Florida or Texas, where roof space is not a problem. Over here, you want to make sure you utilize every single square foot on your roof to save on those utility bills. And so this is our way of saying it can be done. We do this year after year without any problems. And I'll go more into details on what makes a suitable roof for solar. But yeah, these are some examples. Some important terminologies or terms that you need to know when it comes to solar. The two big terms here, the first one is kilowatts, also known as kW. That basically tells you the system size for your solar system. So for example, when you walk around the neighborhood and you see solar panels, what you're going to see is, depending on the roof space and other factors, not all solar panels or solar arrays are the same size. And so for example, what you see here in this picture is an array of 12 panels, 6 panels in the first row, 6 in the second. That's an array of 12 panels. Each panel has a system size of 350 watts multiplied by 12. That gives you a system size of 4,200 watts or 4.2 kW. That's an average system size in DC. This is just an example. What you need to understand here is, even though you don't understand those terms, is kilowatts is a fixed size. It does not vary. So once you install a specific size, while you can add to it in the future, month after month, that size stays fixed. What varies, however, month after month is how much it produces. In the summer months, it's a bit more productive. Winter months, it's still producing electricity, but not as much as maybe May or June. Excuse me. And that's where the term kilowatt hours or kWh comes in. That's your system's production over a specific unit of time. Could be over 1 month, 3 months, biannually, what have you. It varies from roof to roof, property to property, month to month. One of the most common questions I get from previous co-op owners is, hey, I went solar in, say, near Logan Circle. My neighbor installed the same system size in kilowatts. Why do they get to say more on their roof or on their solar system size compared to me? Well, that's because their roof might have lesser shade. The panels might be of a more premium quality. It could be that their microinverter is a bit more productive. It could be a variety of factors. So the two systems with same sizes can produce varying productions. That's what we're trying to show over here. And let's carry on from there. And so this is what it looks like, the whole solar system production process. Do not panic. I see a lot of numbers and a lot of terminologies. I'll try and break it down as much as possible. It's broken down into 5 segments. What you see here in the first segment is, that's your rooftop. Those are the panels. That's the sun over there. And what's happening is, those panels are receiving sunlight directly during those peak sun hours. In DC, it's anywhere between 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon. That's on average. They're receiving sunlight, and those panels are absorbing energy. And what happens then is they go through your inverter, which is in step 2. And what the inverter is doing is converting that electricity or energy into a usable form of electricity for your household. If you really want to get technical here, it basically receives it in DC or direct current, and it converts it to AC or alternating current. Once the conversion takes place through the inverter, it goes into step 3, and it goes into the electric panels, or the electric panel, apologies. It's just one electric panel in your house. And I call it basically the nervous system of your house. That electric panel is sitting there, it receives all that electricity, and it's gauging where you need that electricity across the household. And it distributes it in the most efficient way possible to ensure that any excess solar production is sent back to the grid. In DC, even with, most of the houses are really old, any electric panel that's been installed from, I would say, 1965 or 1970 onwards should be good. You do not need to change it. And when you speak to an installer, they will survey your property. They will look at all these configurations. If they find that your electric panel is too old, it cannot cope with that load, they'll let you know that it needs to be changed. It's usually covered as a part of the installation process. And this is done on a consultation by consultation basis. You do not have to do anything. Just let the installer know that this is when my house was built, this is what I know, and they will walk you through the next steps. And the last part of this is any excess electricity that your solar system is producing that you're not using, it does not go to waste. That's one of the biggest benefits or hidden benefits of solar panels or solar production. There might be times during the day where you might be out at work or you might not be in the house, and your panels are still doing your job. They're producing the electricity and it's going through the house. You're not using it. It actually goes back to the grid. It's exported back to the grid. And this is an incentive because, utilities like Pepco, the national grid and even the local grid is fairly old. Sometimes it has troubles meeting that capacity during the peak summer days. And that's where any excess production by solar panels, it reduces the whole burden across DC. And as a reward to solar owners, they get those excess credits on their electricity bills, which they can use during those winter months. So let's say you produce a surplus in summer. Let's say in the winter, your panels might not be as productive. Even though you're taking electricity back from the grid, some of it will be offset or subtracted because you produced extra in the summer. So here's an example of what it looks like on your bill. Let's say over 1 month, these are just examples, but you used around 300 kilowatt hours, or let's just say 300 units from the grid. This basically means you took that electricity from the grid after sunset or during the winter months. However, you also exported a surplus or an extra 200 units back to the grid. That's deducted from your total bill. And instead of paying an electricity bill for 300 kilowatt hours, you're paying for just 100 kilowatt hours. And, this is a privilege. We work in 12 states. DC has net metering laws that allows solar owners to benefit from this. If you go to other states such as Indiana and what have you, these provisions are not there. We are fighting for this, but this is a privilege to have across the DMV. And, this is a bit of a complicated topic. So if you have any questions about your electricity bill, what it looks like, reach out to me. I have left my contact information on the last slide, and I'll be happy to read your electricity bill and let you know how that whole process works. But this is what, net metering looks like. And again, not an easy topic to understand. Happy to take questions later on. Moving on, in terms of an ideal roof for solar, when an installer surveys a roof and decides what makes a good fit, there are usually 3 factors that they're considering. Number 1 is the orientation of the roof. Let me just rephrase that. So on average, any south-facing roof is most optimal for solar. Not to get into too much into astronomy, but we live in the northern hemisphere. If this is the sun and this is the earth, we're leaning into the sun, which means any south-facing roof is receiving direct sunlight during most months in the year. And that's what makes it most viable and most ideal for solar. If an installer visits your property, that's the first part of the roof that they will check. Having said that, east-facing and west-facing roofs are also good for solar. Those are good alternatives. The only exception I would say here is any north-facing roof in DC. Even though you have enough space on the north-facing roof, that alone is not enough for a solar investment. And sometimes folks are turned down for solar if that's the case. Number 2, during those peak sun hours between 9 in the morning to 4 in the afternoon, there should be minimal shade on your roof. Now, I know that, sometimes there are 50-50 cases, but in terms of a magic number, installers look for at least 200 square feet of open roof space, which is not affected by shade between 9 to 4. If you have any concerns about this, if you feel like you fall in the gray area here, reach out to us. We actually do roof reviews for free for anyone out in the public, and we'll let you know if it's a good fit And if it's rejected, why is it rejected? We'll give you a criteria and walk you through the whole process. And number three, related to the second factor is enough space. Like I said, 200 square feet. However, sometimes installers are willing to make an exception as panels get more efficient. And sometimes they'll, give the benefit of doubt to anyone who has around 180 or 190. But again, it's on a case-to-case basis. These are the three big factors. If you need a free roof assessment, reach out to us and we'll be happy to do so. Moving on, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but as much as we want to push for the benefits of rooftop solar, the reality is not every roof is a good, not every roof is a good fit. Could be inadequate roof space, could be shading, it could be the roof material. Most roofs are good in terms of material. It could be steel roofs, asphalt shingle, any other roof. The only exception is slate roofs. They're a bit more fragile. On average, slate roofs are turned down because the material is too difficult to work with. And installers that do work on it, they charge an extra fee. So in the event that you're turned down for rooftop solar, the alternative is installing a ground-mounted system in your backyard and what have you. But that is pricier because there's so much digging and trenching involved. Sometimes even that is really pricey. And that's where alternatives come in DC. The first one is community solar, and the second one is PPA or power purchase agreements. I'll go over community solar first as an alternative. How it basically works is you may not be installing community solar right on your roof. You can be a subscriber to a local community solar project, and you usually pay a fixed fee every month, or sometimes it's even you're not charged any upfront cost. And what you're basically doing is you're renting panels, and they're, for every, it's usually 1,000 kilowatt hours, for every unit that they produce that's sent out to the grid, you get a credit on your electricity bill. So you do not own community solar. It's not your personal panels. It still belongs to the utility or third party, but you're rewarded for that subscription by getting one unit or one credit for every 1,000 kilowatt hours of clean energy produces. And that credit is deducted from your utility bill. So depending on the size of your community solar subscription, folks in DC offset anywhere from 40 to 80 or 90% on their electricity bills. And again, this is done on a case-by-case basis. There are tons of community solar programs across DC, Maryland, and Virginia. We actually have a database on our website. Just reach out to me and I'm happy to share this after the presentation, but this is a viable alternative for folks who are not a good fit for rooftop solar. And it's actually over here, this resource. It's called cs.solarunitedneighbors.org. But again, if you miss this over here, you can take a quick snapshot if you want. But reach out to me after the presentation. I'm happy to share this, excuse me, share this with you. And we try to keep this database as up to date as possible. We rely on local vendors to give us reliable information. So if something is out of date, just let us know, we'll update it. But it's been a pretty nifty tool for the past 5 or 6 years for income qualified folks or anyone who cannot afford solar on the roof. And moving on. These are some of the most frequently asked questions that we get, not just across DC, but across the country. The first one is warranties. You're paying a significant sum for solar panels. What are the warranties? So on the panels themselves, on average, most installers offer a 25-year product warranty. So if any of your panels go down, most installers will come to your property, replace them within 24 to 48 hours, no questions asked, free of cost. For example, we did a co-op in DC last year. We had 76 households go solar with a local company called Solar Solution. Their words, not mine. The majority of solar customers were satisfied with them. In the follow-up, we do follow-up surveys and follow-up site visits. 2 of the 76 had panels that either were not of good quality, they did not work as they had been promised, or they just went down. Happens. Solar Solutions reps came by within 24 hours, looked at them, deinstalled them, fixed them, replaced them, free of charge. That's how warranties work. The second warranty is on the solar inverters. That's anywhere from 10 to 25 years, depending on the brand that you install. The string inverters are a bit more basic. They're usually 10 years. Micro inverters are a bit more sophisticated. They're usually 15 to 25 years. And besides that, usually there's a workmanship warranty. It's usually for 10 years. What that basically means is if there's something that's gone wrong on the roof or anything else around the property that can be directly attributed to the solar system, usually there's a workmanship warranty of anywhere from 10 to 25 years, again, depending on the installer that you're working with. But anytime you receive a proposal from an installer, always look out for the warranties. This should be covered by 99% of the installers. Secondly, homeowners insurance. We keep hearing from there's this urban legend and this rumor that the moment you install solar, those rates go up significantly, which is a deterrent and what have you. Not true. There are now green realtors and sustainability realtors who can walk you through the process. And solar panels are actually an asset to the property and will add value to your property if you have to sell it in the future. Your realtor and the installer will walk you through the process in the event that you have to move homes and you have to hand off those panels to the next owner. There are options. Your insurance rates don't just go up significantly. Solar is pretty competitive in DC, and there are alternatives to this, and they keep the rates pretty competitive. Thirdly, maintenance. For the first 25 years, the installer covers this for your system. What I usually recommend is if you see any leaves on the panels or any wire dangling on the roof, please don't go up and fix it. That's not your job. You've done the hard work of paying for the system. Just call the installer rep. You can reach out to us. We have connections at each of these installers' headquarters. We'll put you in touch with them, and they will come and do the work for you. That's one of the big benefits of solar systems is they just sit there on the roof for 25 to 30 years. They're doing the majority of job for you. They're doing the production. You don't have to do anything. In the event something goes amiss, your warranty covers it. Please don't go up there and fix anything. You don't need to. Like I said, how long do systems last? 25 to 30 years. However, we are seeing an uptick in this. When I joined this company or Solar United Neighbors in 2019, I used to say the average system lifetime was 20 to 25. Now it's 25 to 30, and it's going up. As the panels get more efficient, as the technology evolves, that expectancy will continue to climb. So it's only going to get better. Moving on, what if you're in a historic district? We have worked with folks in historic districts before. They can make solar installations happen. What usually happens is, for example, folks who live in Logan Circle, DuPont, or any other historic district, the installer looks at the roof, they look at the public sidewalk or any public property, and they make sure that the panels are not installed in a part of a roof that's facing a public sidewalk or a public property. That's all. And in all the co-ops that I've run, there have been very, very few exceptions for folks who live in historic districts. So this should not be a deterrent. It's just another consideration, that's all. And lastly, condos. Like I said, solar is not perfect. So sometimes we have HOAs or condo board directors or the heads of condos basically saying, we don't want solar on our roofs, or we don't want to invest in this technology. That's fine. You can still reach out to community solar subscribers. And in the event, in the best case scenario that your condo board says, hey, we want to go solar, but we don't know how. One of the best companies across the districts is Honeydew Advisors. Anytime folks reach out to us, we don't specialize in condo installs. We refer them to Jacob Parrott at Honeydew. And as of this year, we have had almost 25 properties reach out about condos, and they make it happen. So if you live in a condo, it's still a possibility. It's just a few more steps in between, but Honeydew does a good job. You can read Jacob on this email, and I'm happy to follow up and send you his contact info if needed. Moving on, solar economics. So one of the big benefits of Inflation Reduction Act that was passed last year was, first thing is ITCs or investment tax credits, also known as federal tax credits. They were actually scheduled to go down from 26% to 22% this year, and into 10% in the future. The good news is they've been propped up to 30% for the next decade. What this basically means is if you have a large enough federal tax liability every fiscal year, you can claim 30% of that liability on your solar installation. So if your solar installation cost you $10,000, if you had a large enough federal tax liability, you can claim up to $3,000 on that. And the best part is it does not have to be claimed in one fiscal year. It can be rolled over into the next one and the next one for the next 10 years. So if you don't have a large enough liability, you can still claim it and then claim this, the remaining sum in subsequent years. It will still go down in 2033, but that's well down the line. ITCs are a boon to the industry, to the installers, to customers. It also ensures my job stays safe, at least for the next decade or so. So that's also good news for me, but it's a huge benefit for everyone. And this is a slide that people get most curious about. It's a lot of numbers. I don't want anyone to panic. I'll keep it simple and I'll go line by line over one example. What you see here is an example pricing for solar systems and the returns you get over 25 years. Because remember, like I said, solar systems have a life expectancy of 25 years. That's how we equate everything. I'm going to use an average system size, which is on the smaller side of 4 kilowatts in DC. And I'm going to use a price that's been average across DC in the open market, which is around $3 a watt. So assuming you have a 4 kilowatt system, you multiply that by $3 per watt, and that's 4,000 times 3, which is $12,000. If you have a large enough federal tax liability, you can claim up to 30% of it. 30% of 12,000 is $3,600. That's deducted. This is another fun part. It's a bit complicated, but I have to include it because SRECs are a huge part of the solar market, and DC's got the best SREC market. So SRECs are a short form for solar renewable energy credits. What you need to know is this is a production incentive for DC homeowners. It was passed as a part of the larger bill in 2019, also known as CEDC or Clean Energy DC or Omnibus Act. What it basically does is it's a reward for homeowners who invest in solar. For every 1,000 kilowatt hours or 1 megawatt that their system produces in clean energy, they receive 1 SREC. For a 4 kilowatt system size, that's an average of around 5 SRECs per year. If you look at any SREC website right now, in the open market, the price of 1 SREC is around $400 in DC. In 1 year, for 5 credits, you make $2,000. Over 25 years, if the market remains steady, that's anywhere from 40 to 50 grand on top of what you're saving on your utility bills. This is just for DC. DC has the best market, like I said. Now, if you go to states like Indiana or maybe Colorado, it's not as good. As an example, in Indiana, sorry, I feel like I'm being really harsh on Indiana, but their SREC market rewards them $5 for 1 SREC. That's a fairly significant difference. So, that's my way of saying this is another incentive for solar homeowners over here. If you want more information on this, there are 2 big brokers in DC. One is Sol Systems, the other is SREC Trade. They work across the East Coast. Most people go solar through them or just sign them up as an SREC broker. If you want to get in touch with them, I would be happy to make an introduction, and I'll give you the contact info at the end of the presentation. But in this case, we have been more conservative, and there's an upfront offer for SRECs. That's the cheapest package on offer. This is the lowest amount of risk involved. That rewards you around $1,500 per kilowatt. For a 4 kilowatt system, that's $6,000. If you deduct that from the total cost for the system, your net price is around $2,500. Now, this is where the savings kick in. Over the first year, DC residents save around $650 on their utility bills if they have invested in solar. This is how much you would be paying if you did not have a solar system. Over 10 years, assuming there's an escalator rate on those utility rates in DC, that saving goes up to around $6,900. Over 25 years, if you had not invested in solar, you would have lost $20,000. That's how much saving you have at the end of everything. So on top, over 25 years, you're not actually paying for the system. You're actually making money out of this. And if I move this to the bottom, that's a net profit of around $16,900. Most people ask me in DC, what's a payback period? For a smaller system, it's around 7 to 8 years. So you break even in that 8 year, and then for the remaining 17 years, you're making money out of that system. If you have a larger system like a 8 kilowatt or a 12 kilowatt that you see here on the right columns, that payback goes down to 6 years and 4 years, fairly significant. And again, these are just example numbers. We have installed more than 400 installations in DC. We use the numbers and the data from our database since 2014 to come up with this. So if you're going for a larger system, these numbers will go up. If you go for a smaller system, the savings will be a bit more modest. So it just depends. The alternative to owning a system would be, essentially going through loans. And we had, of the 76 people who went solar, I believe 4 people who were income qualified went through credit unions. They worked out a loan, and they still own the system after paying those loans. So that's still an option. The other option is a solar lease, such as community solar or PPAs. So PPA is another alternative where you work with a developer. What they will do is they will install solar panels on your roof. If you cannot afford them, they will install them free of cost or for a very, very low, very low upfront price. Now, in exchange for that solar installation, they're going to have access to your SREX for the next 25 years. That's the opportunity cost of getting a free installation. And what's going to happen is, instead of paying the utility rate dictated by PEPCO, you may be paying 20% of that. So you're still saving around 60 to 70% on the system by going for a PPA. Again, just to reiterate, PPA, power purchase agreement, developer comes in, installs a system on your roof, you get a free solar installation. In exchange for that free installation, you surrender your SREX for 25 years, usually, but you're still saving 70 to 80% on average on your utility bills. If you need a second opinion on PPAs or a contract that you'll receive from someone, please reach out to us. Let me stress this really importantly. Like any other industry, they're good actors, they're bad actors. We have heard horror stories from folks across the country where someone knocked on the door, promised free solar, told them to sign on some paperwork where, because their English was their second language or they were not told everything on the contract, they were promised free solar and suddenly their rates went up or something went amiss. Please reach out to nonprofits such as us. We will review your contract at no cost to you. I usually set up 15-minute pro bono consultations, and I let people know if it's a good deal or if it's not a good deal. We know who the bad actors are, but we cannot rat them out because we're a neutral nonprofit, so I cannot go on record, but just reach out to us if you need a second opinion. I do not want to dissuade anyone from PPAs. It's still a good deal. It just depends on who you go solar with. That's all. Moving on, this is the last option besides owning a system or going for PPAs or community solar. DOE is running its own Solar for All program. This was launched as a part of Clean Energy DC Act in 2019. And the district has a really ambitious goal of helping 100,000 LMI or low to moderate income residents in DC go solar by 2032. It's not a secret. The majority of folks who face energy poverty or are affected by high energy bills are folks who live presumably in wards 4 or 7. It's tough, those utility bills. And that's where DOE is more invested in these projects. And how it's going to work is looking at this table below, and I feel like I'm blocking it, apologies, but depending on how many people you have in your household, if you fall in those income thresholds and you're income qualified, you can sign up for the Solar for All program. I believe they're working with a Solar Solution, one of the installers, and another installer in the district. They will offer you free solar. All you need to do is be income qualified, sign the paperwork, and you're all set. If you have more questions on this, I'll jump onto the next slide and you can reach out to that person. But what I try to do actively is, looking at this table below, and I feel like I'm blocking it, apologies, but depending on how many people you have in your household, if you fall in those income thresholds and you're income qualified, you can sign up for the Solar for All program. I believe they're working with a Solar Solution, one of the installers, and another installer in the district. They will offer you free solar. All you need to do is be income qualified, sign the paperwork, and you're all set. If you have more questions on this, I'll jump onto the next slide and you can reach out to that person. But we want our co-ops to work. We are in this for the business as well. But if I see a struggling family, I do not want them to pay for solar in my program. I just refer them to DOEE, connect them to the Solar for All program, and we make it work for them. Back in 2019, we were actually partnering with the DOEE on a Solar for All program. We had capacity issues. We have grown well since then, so we have opted out of it. But this is still a really robust program. I would like to endorse this and help out anyone who wants to be an applicant for this. And on that related note, these are some of the contacts and references that I have across the district. These are the three big ones that I've been in touch with. The first one is Margaret Moskowitz, who works at the DCPSC at the Public Service Commission. And in the past 3 years, we have had a handful of installations where they had permitting issues, where they had pushback from PEPCO to pay out more for the installation because they were adding too much energy on the grid and overwhelming the local utility pool and what have you. We thought it was unfair. We worked with the PSC and eliminated those added costs for the co-op participants. In a nutshell, the PSC tries to mediate and solve these concerns for residents who are looking to go solar. In terms of numbers, this was 2 years ago in that co-op. We had 50 people go solar, 6 people got pushback from PEPCO, 5 of the cases were resolved thanks to Margaret. Only one of them had to cancel their contract because it was too tricky, but she was fantastic in that. The second contact is at the DOEE. Like I said, Solar for All program, that's their project or their big initiative across the district. My lead over there is Alvin Jones. If you have any questions about your qualification or how to be qualified for this or how to apply for this, please reach out to Alvin. That's his email over there. He coordinates this program year in, year out with the installers and will answer any questions you have. And if you miss this email by any chance, I will leave my email at the end of the presentation. I'm happy to make a connection. And the last person is Pamela Nelson at the OPC. I mean, she's an all-star in terms of the wide variety of work she does. Anytime people have questions about their utility bills where they feel like they're being overcharged, or some other energy efficiency initiatives in DC, or anything else regarding solar, she's the person to reach out to. On a related topic, she also helps on solar pop-ups. What's happening in DC is, and it's going to grow more over the next 10 years or so, is sometimes there are adjacent properties that install solar. One of them installs a pop-up or an added floor, which casts a lot of shade on another property. That's something the OPC mediates and tries to solve on a case-by-case basis. So if you have any questions about that, that's her email over there, pnelson@opc-dc.gov. If you miss it, not a problem, just reach out to me. And again, these are just some of the folks we engage with in DC. We have more contacts, but if you have any questions about initiatives or anything you might be curious about on the clean energy side, we're here for you. All right, moving on. This is more on the policy side. Some of the barriers to going solar. I'm not going to sugarcoat everything. It's not a utopia. There are challenges. The first one that I touched upon was interconnection and upgrade costs. This is under the docket under FC 1050. We have been fighting this for the past 2 years, and I've been to PSC hearings about this. In a nutshell, what's happened is a very small segment of solar customers or applicants have received pushback from PEPCO, where PEPCO has been charging those customers for local infrastructure upgrades on the transformers, utility poles, or something related. It's done on a sporadic or random basis. Some of our co-op members are affected. When we looked at the case letter, we could not understand why they were randomly targeted or what happened there. We are working with CHESA, which is a big solar organization here. We're working with installers or Justice and other partners to bring PEPCO to account and basically clarify their stance on this because it's been a bit murky. It's affecting the district's ability to meet its clean energy targets by 2032. So we're actively engaging PEPCO on this. If you're one of the folks who have been affected by this and you don't know where to go, reach out to me after this meeting. I'll get you in touch with Margaret Moskowitz. She can mediate this. We can add this to our existing list of complainants, and we can go from there. The second one is more towards the community side. It's called CREF, or Community Renewable Energy Facilities. These are large-scale condos or CREF owners. I don't want to get too technical, but we're trying to work with the PSC to hold PEPCO accountable under docket FC 1171. A lot of CREF owners have not been compensated their fair share of solar credits well before the pandemic. And we believe, when I made this presentation, it was around $800,000. It's more than that now. It's actually almost hitting $1 million. So a lot of CREF owners have not received their credits. And this is my way of saying, besides the co-ops that we run, we also focus or fight policy issues. And sometimes capacity is an issue. Before the pandemic, we had 40 full-time staff members. We have expanded to 70. We run on grants. We continue to expand and fight the good fight. But even then, capacity is an issue. So we are doing our best to represent DC solar homeowners and customers on these issues. And lastly, the solar pop-ups. Like I said a couple of slides ago, this is going to happen more often as more people go solar. If you live in a neighborhood where you installed solar and the person next to you suddenly decides to add another story to their home, these are some of the, depending on where you live, this might apply to you. If you know, or if you feel like that added pop-up or that added story casts excessive shade on your panels during those peak sun hours, as long as you have a system size of above 2 kilowatts and it was operational or interconnected to the grid and received the permits before the homeowner had their pop-up approved, you should be good. The last thing in this criteria is work with your installer or a local energy company to prove that your energy savings have been reduced by more than 5%. If they have, you have a case over there. And there are usually two alternatives. The first one is work with a lawyer or work with your installer to tabulate how much money you would be losing annually. And you can work with the person next door to be compensated your fair share. Now, in a utopian world, that would work perfectly, but it doesn't. People fight back on that. And that's where the PSC, the OPC comes in. You can engage them on this and seek their permission to suspend this project to ensure that your shading is not affected. There is no clear-cut procedure on how to proceed on this. This is a really new problem in DC. We are trying to adapt to the rules month after month as the PSC has more clarity on how this is affecting DC homeowners. So as this changes, I will add more content on our website. But if you still have any doubts, reach out to us. I will get you in touch with our policy team and we'll see what we can do for you. But if you want more information, we have an article on our website. It's up here on the top. I don't expect you to know the whole URL, but just Google Solar United Neighbors throwing shade on your solar, something along those lines. Or if you don't even want to do that, just reach out to me. I'll send you this link myself. And we have made it to the last part of the presentation. I appreciate the patience. Just bear with me for a couple more slides. And this is where I advertise the co-ops or the programs that we run each year. So this is our bread and butter. This is why we were established as an organization. As compared to people going solar on their own, we run bulk purchase campaigns. I call it the Costco model. I've also used it in media interviews where you go to Costco to buy stuff in bulk because you get a discount. That's similar to solar. When people are bulked up in our co-ops, we get to represent them in front of the installer. We get them a discounted rate, on average 15 to 20% cheaper than going solar on your own. But the other benefit is, solar is my daytime job. Not for most people. It's still a complicated market. So by joining the co-op, we're basically hand-holding during the whole process. We'll walk you through the whole installation process and beyond. If you have any questions during the installation, before the installation, we will mediate that with the installer. If you have maintenance issues after the installation, as a Sun member, we will help you out. And there is no cost to be a Sun member once you go solar with us. So those are the two big benefits. We usually run one of these programs each year with our partners out in Holland and Europe. They're called iChooser, and this is our mutual program. It's called Solar Switch. We just finished one of the programs earlier this fall. We stopped accepting new applications at the end of August. The good news is we're going to run another rendition of this program at the end of October this year. So if you're interested, this is what the timeline looks like. It's going to be launched on October the 30th. It's going to run till the end of December. We're going to run an auction where we'll invite installers to bid on the program. And we will select an installer by the end of December or first week of January. And by the second week of January, every single member will receive a customized proposal from the installer. If you like the proposal, you just have to pay a deposit and get on with the process. If you do not like the proposal, it's too pricey or something else comes up, just let me know. I'll remove you from the program. No questions asked, free of cost. And in terms of numbers, usually the closing rate is around 40%. So for anyone who opts out of the program, we remove them. There's no extra charge to them. So it's not an obligation, it's just an option. And by June next year, we expect to have all the installations completed. So all in all, it's usually a 3 to 6 month process. And we will walk you through the whole installation process once you become a member. With that said, that's my presentation. It was a mouthful, it was a lot. I appreciate your patience and thank you once again, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you so much, Sukrit. This has been great.
Thank
I'll
you.
give you a moment to catch your breath, and I will look at let me see. Actually, I have a question since I'm going to ask you already. I
Sure.
get since I have the mic. Um, a lot of the roofs in DC are flat, or at least in Capitol Hill are flat roofs.
Mhm.
So how does that work? Because I know that you were talking a lot about the orientation and everything of the
Sure.
roof.
Yeah, good question. I should have covered that, but yeah, flat roofs are not a problem. What usually happens is a racking system is installed on top of them. It's usually metal clippings or something along those lines if people don't like penetrations. The panels are installed on them and they're oriented on a slope. The reason they're sloped is because we want to ensure that angle is as convenient as possible to receive maximum amount of shade. So flat roofs are not a deterrent. We have had co-op members go solar with those. And what the installer will do is they'll ask them the age of the roof. If it does not need replacing in the next decade or 20 years, it's fairly new or fairly robust. They're going to make penetrations in them. If it's a bit more fragile roof, they're going to use metal clippings or something along those lines to ensure that the roof is not compromised, slope the panels, and ensure that your production is as high as possible. So in short, not a problem.
Thank you. And let me just go ahead and read this. This is from a board member of ours, not from the United Nations. I noticed her from Udina. We used flexible panels that could be glued between the standing seams of the roof, absolutely invisible from any public area. Not quite as efficient, but roof area makes up for it.
I feel like that's more of a comment than a question, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay.
What happens at the end of the lifespan of the panels? What is the cost and process of removing them? Where do they go?
Ooh, good question. So once the system hits its lifetime, it's usually covered in the contract, but the installer will reach out to you and ask you what you want to do with it next. If it's still producing up to 85% of its peak production that it was producing in the first year, you're welcome to just keep them up. I mean, it's still doing its job, still producing electricity. It does not need replacing. However, if it's really old and not doing its job anymore, the installer stipulates in the contract, well, they'll come by your property, deinstall it. It's usually free of charge, or there might be a small nominal charge, but it's not too significant, but they have you covered. In terms of recycling, that's where it gets interesting. Sometimes those panels are used for alternative purposes in LMI zones or low to moderate income zones or households. Sometimes they're used for alternative purposes, but hate to be the bearer of bad news. Even though I work in sustainability, not all of them are recycled. So they're handled in a code compliant way. but we're still trying to find a foolproof solution to find, to ensure that they're recycled as efficiently as possible. That's still an open loop. We're working on it.
Right. And I'll read these questions as well, but after that, if anybody just has a question, you can go ahead and put take your mute off and ask it. It doesn't need to go through me in case I murder the intent of the question, which is always possible. Um, when do this SREC, the SRECs, I guess, end? Where does Energy Sage fit into your process? I've received several bids. I'm not sure if those are related or not.
No, no, I mean, these are good questions. So the first one, um, so SRECs, renewable energy credits, they were supposed to end in 2032, according to the last bill. However, we worked with local council members and the PSC last November to pass a new bill under B 24950. You can look it up. It's also called Solar Expansion Amendment Act. And it ensures that the SREC market will run till at least 2041 and even beyond. That SREC market won't just disappear overnight. The rates will fluctuate. That's what's going to happen. Right now in the open market, it's around $400 in SREC. It's not going to be $400 in 20 years from now. It might come down to $200. And the reason it's going to come down is demand and supply. Once the district determines that or establishes that we have achieved our clean energy goals, solar does not need any other incentives to be purchased by DC residents, those rates will start to come down. Not next year, but maybe towards the end of in the late 2030s or early 2040s. So the answer there is at least 2 decades. It should be fairly robust. Energy Sage, they're actually a third party for anyone else watching this presentation and they're not aware of this. Anytime someone wants to go solar, that's actually our recommendation. If you don't want to go solar through the co-op because the timeline is too long or you just want to go solar on your own, that's fine. We recommend folks to Energy Sage. What's going to happen is you set up a profile there, you give your zip code, you give your property's address, and the installers on that platform will reach out to you, give you customized proposals. And we believe, as of in the present day, it's the most reliable third party because they don't spam anyone. They have reliable data, they have reliable vetted installers, and we recommend it to anyone who reaches out to us. Now, if you have received your proposals and you need a second opinion on those proposals, we are happy to help. Send it to us on this email, dcteam@solarunitedneighbors.org. And I usually review these proposals for anyone in DC, Maryland, Virginia. I have an engineering background, and I review up to 3 proposals for free for every homeowner. So if you would like to use that service, reach out to me at this email. But yeah, Energy Sage, really reliable, and they're renowned for their proposals and customer service.
Cool. Does anyone install systems that route the poser to a LiPo for lithium battery bank? This would provide off-the-grid power in the case of a Pepco system failure.
No, that's a good question. Can you ask this person to reach out to me on this email? I mean, in my experience, we have had previous installers and co-ops work with these configurations. I'm not sure if they do still, but I think Solar Energy World, SEW, and Lumina Solar, they do specialize in this. But my information may be out of date. So reach out to me on this email and let me see what I can find on this. I'll also give you an email or access to our DC listserv, where we have a lot of policy experts, DC homeowners, and installers lurking. They'll give you their 2 cents and answer any questions on battery specific questions. But yeah, reach out on this and I'm happy to answer this.
Okay, then do you know what percentage of a typical flat roof on Capitol Hill, sorry, something's covering my
No
thing,
worries.
would be covered by panels? Do you know what percentage of a typical flat roof on Capitol Hill row house would be covered by panels?
Right, that's It's a good question. The trouble is it's a bit open-ended because
Yeah.
it depends on your utility bills and your personal goals. Are you looking to offset 50% of your bills, 100%, oversize your system? I'm going to assume you're trying to offset around 100% of your electricity bill. If that's the case, usually given the roof sizes which are more economical at Capitol Hill, I would say it would cover around 70 to 80%. However, there are exceptions. It depends on your goals. If you need a more in-depth assessment, reach out to installers and get at least 3 proposals and send us your physical address. We can also determine how much space you'll be needing for your system. So, it's not a one size fits all. It just depends on a lot of factors.
Okay. I'm going to go with two more questions
Sure.
because I want to be respectful of your time and others. Although I think I know the question answered this one. What do you do if you need roof repairs after installation?
Ooh, okay. I'm just trying to see how I should answer this. Um, First of all, I don't want to give anyone a lesson here, but if you know you live in a really old household that needs a roof replacement within the next 10 to 15 years, please, please, please get that roof fixed or replaced before the installation. The reason we make this recommendation is because if you install the system and then the roof goes down or something breaks, it means the installer has to come in, deinstall the system, fix the roof either by themselves or a third-party roofer, and then install the system again. This is not normal. This is not usually covered in your total system costs. There'll be an added charge per panel. So if you know it needs replacing in the next 10 to 15 years, please do it before the installation or during the installation process. Having said that, accidents happen. If you need a roof repair after the installation, most roofers have some kind of terms in their contract. If they don't, please ask them to include it. They usually have a third-party contractor roofer that's going to come in and fix your roof. But it's usually done for an added cost. So this is not a typical scenario. In most cases, this does not happen because then solar would not be a viable business. But if it does, the installer has you covered.
And then the last question, although I don't feel badly about cutting anything short because I know you've been so open and uh, gracious as far as answering questions afterwards, but are DC homeowners installing battery backups?
Good question. Short answer, no. The only place we recommend battery backups is states further south. We have field staff in Florida. 30% of our business is done in Florida, simply because it's in the middle of a hurricane path and the hurricane season always affects them. The way solar systems are set up is if they ever go down because of weather conditions and what have you, as a safety mechanism, those solar systems are also deactivated. Not because the technology is not good enough, it's just a mandate from the government and Pepco. It's a safety mechanism. We don't want any excess power going back to the grid when the grid is down and getting any utility staff people working on the grid getting electrocuted. That's why panels also go down, and that's where batteries are a bit more relevant. I've lived in DC for 4 years. I haven't seen any grid outages. Maybe I'm just lucky, but it's usually recommended where we operate in Texas, Louisiana, Puerto Rico, and Florida. In DC, I can count on my hands in the past 3 years, and I always say this, we have had 2 homeowners who have opted for battery systems out of more than 400 systems. The reason they went for a battery backup is because they really wanted to be prepared for emergencies, for disasters, and they wanted to oversize their system to really, utilize on that SREC market and make a lot of money. But that's more of an exception than the norm. You do not need a battery backup at DC under normal circumstances. All right.
This is excellent. Thank you so much, Sukrit. This has been really, really informative. I
Yeah,
really appreciate your time, and I'm sure others do as well.
yeah.
And thank you also for putting your information out there so people can contact you. And then again, as I mentioned earlier, if people missed it, Sun, do you just go by Sun or SUN?
Oh,
It's from
sun,
your
just sun.
organization, Sun.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be at the House Expo at Easter Market on September. Um,
You mean October?
yeah, it's not September, it's
That's
October.
okay.
October 28th from 9 to 3. So um, anyway, so yeah, October 28th at Easter Market, they'll be there to so you can speak with someone, if not yourself. And so yeah,
Yeah.
and thank
Uh,
you.
just one last thing. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah, no, no, go ahead.
I did see one gentleman's hand up. I think his name is Mike.
Oh,
I'm
I'm
happy to
sorry.
take a question. No, that's okay. I did see
Yeah.
his hand up earlier. So, Mike, you're welcome to ask it in
Hi.
right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. I guess my question comes down to sizing of systems. Um, you know, we have I on a energy task force for our church that is thinking about solar, and
Mhm.
I wondered about, you talked about the size of the system to depend on your objectives, but then, do you size it for peak like demand, like in the summer, and then for the rest of the year you're exporting back, or do you base load it so that it's probably not an easy question. I'm trying to decide what we're going to do for our church and really for my house as well. So it's like this question of, do you base load it, which is the minimum you're going to need, like kind of during the winter, and then knowing you're going to have to buy some in the summertime because of the peak demand of air conditioning, or do you size it for peak demand in the summer, knowing you're going to be exporting most of the rest of the time?
No,
Is that easy question, or is, I mean, I know it's not an easy question, but is it something that's answerable, or there
it's
should be
an
like a peak economic thing here somehow, So,
there's I mean, like I said, I'm an engineer, so I can give you a crash course and really bore everyone over here for an hour, but I'll keep it simple. The simple answer is yes, it can be done. Um, what usually happens is installers ask folks, churches or nonprofits, for their average monthly utility bill over a 12-month period. Based on your kilowatt hour consumption across 12 months, we find an average and we size the system accordingly. And what happens with that system is during the summer months, it's going to cover most of your electricity needs because that's the peak production. Those modules are kicking in, they're really productive. In the winter months, where they fall short by on average 20 to 30%, any surplus production in the summer covers up for that shortfall. So you should not expect to pay any utility bill if that system is designed to cover 95 to 100% of your average utility bill. That's what we usually do for single family homes, as well as nonprofits and other businesses. As an example, there's a nonprofit theater here up in the north near Chevy Chase. They're called Avalon. They installed a solar system on the roof that cost them around $200,000. It's a big size. It's a pretty big roof. Their electricity bills were pretty high. They crowdfunded it basically, and we kind of helped them on it. And that's what we did. In the preliminary steps, we looked at the size of the roof, the physical integrity, and then their monthly utility bills. And then once we had a 12-month rolling average, we determined what would be the optimal size. Now, after that, if they have any secondary goals, we can decide if you want to increase the system or decrease the system accordingly. But it's usually over a 12-month rolling average. Does that answer the question?
I live on Capitol Hill,
Okay.
and my house is completely shaded by a big tree.
Mhm.
But my garage is not shaded. So I'm
That can,
debating like putting the
yeah.
solars on the garage, but the source of power into the house is like way on the other side of the house. Is that a problem to get the power moved? I don't know if I'm just, maybe everybody else has these problems, but is that moving the power from the garage to export it back onto the street, which is on the other side of the building, is that a problem?
No, it shouldn't be. I mean, it happens
Okay.
from time to time. We had it in the previous co-op as well, where folks had shaded roofs or really small roofs. And that's where the installer looked at the garage or an adjacent pop-up. And as long as that does not have any shading, they install the system. The wiring is going to be customized in a way that it does not disturb anything else on the property. They might charge you a bit extra for that wiring, but it can be done. I mean, it's not a problem. The only flip side is it might be a smaller system depending on the space on your garage. So it might not cover the same amount of space as your roof can, which means it might just cover 50 to 60% of your electricity bills. So I do not know how much you pay, but it can be done. And it might be a bit more modest in terms of electricity savings.
I'll be reaching out to you for your help. Thank you.
Sounds good. Yeah.
Thank you for
Those
taking.
those were really great questions. I'm really glad that you asked them, and thank you for Sukrit for answering them.
Of course.
So, okay. Well, thank you very much. Everybody have a wonderful evening, and we'll hopefully see you again in October 24th for another cafe virtually or at the House Expo um, in October in person at Easter Market. Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you all.